Alright, here's a quick breakdown, Nick, of your swing. So what we have here is your kinematic sequence. So what we can say from the standpoint of efficient to inefficient, your takeaway or backswing looks really good. The red line is your hips, green line is your torso, and the brown line is your hands. So how these lines stretch or separate is really quite good, and this is an example of an efficient takeaway, and you also have this sort of similar sequence. As we start the downswing though, we've got a little change in the sequencing. Your hips fire first in addition to your hands. So the hips and hands go at the exact same time, and your torso goes third. However, we know that you're a pretty good player because the peak speed sequence, these numbers here, tell us that you still know how to time your hips first, shoulders peak second, and then hands peak third. We know that you also spin the hips really quite fast at 529 degrees per second. Your shoulders also spin really fast, and your hands are a little below that. So that kind of tells us, maybe Trevor can give you some pointers or some instruction about if there is anything that needs to be done with figuring out a bit more of a wrist cock or something like that. However, what we can say is that these numbers are really, really elite, and that the transfer of power from the hips to shoulders is really good, and the transfer to shoulders to hands could improve a fair bit more. That's only if you want to hit the ball further. If we could quickly go through like a summary, green generally is good. It means everything is in the right position. Sometimes you set up with the hips slightly closed. The torso is kind of maybe a bit more open or a bit extreme. And then the upper body bend, sometimes you set up a bit more upright. And your pelvic bend is also within the right amount, but also on the low end. So at least what we do like is that these two numbers are consistent in relation to the lower end of the two. One of the things we found is that sometimes you tend to rotate the hips too far, so you're turning your hips around 60 degrees, so more of a restricted hip turn is probably going to be something that smooths it out. And for you, what we found was that your ball flight changes. You do get a better sequencing in some of the later ones, and you get less of that high fade. Upper body turn. So we can sort of say that the pelvis turns a bit too far at the top of the backswing, and at impact it's under-rotated. Upper body is over-rotated at the top, and again under-rotated at impact. So a lot of this stuff will clear up when we restrict the hip turn and then see what happens from there. Pelvic movement though, how much your pelvis is bent over or like flexed or tucked. You set up right within the right amount. The top is in the right amount, and impact, it also means that like your belt buckle is almost level, just a few degrees, so that's also really good. The side bend, it means that your lead hip is just a little, trail hip is just slightly too high at address, and the top, it's right where it should be, and at impact, it would also like to see that trail hip get also a little bit higher as well. So it means that it's just a little too low at impact. Upper body bend, yeah, it would like to see you tip over a bit more. This -6 is suggesting that you might have like a bit of a reverse spine angle, or your shoulders might be pointing back towards the target line when you try and turn a little too far. And what we want to do is sort of substitute some of this upper body bend at -6 and give it a little bit more to the side bend. So this would be for you getting your left shoulder a little bit lower. So we'd like to sort of see a range of another 5+ degrees to put you closer to 40 degrees. And the same thing at impact, we'd like to see that right shoulder get a little bit lower as well. If we were to just look at the other numbers we had, so we just gave you a quick drill here to see what would happen if we change some of your numbers, like restricted the hip turn. We can see that we cleaned up your transition sequence as well as your peak speeds. The peak speeds, we sort of saw that things dropped a bit, but there wasn't too much of a loss. And I think for you, the ball, from what I remember, went straighter as well. At address, that little change also puts you within the norms. Upper body bend is still pretty stable, so this for you was kind of like pinching your glutes or trying to like level that tuck or make the low back flatter. We know that your hip flexors are pretty tight, so the more you stretch your hip flexors, the easier that this angle here is going to get closer to that range, and a little further away from 15 is a good thing. Pelvis position at the top, so you're still wanting to over rotate a bit, but that's still pretty good. And the side bend is still within the right amount, and the side bend is how low that left hip is. So that means your lead hip is just about 13 degrees pointed down, so that's pretty good. What do we have here? Impact position. So your hips actually rotated further through. They're still a little closed in impact, but that's a lot better. The shoulders still turn pretty far, like another 100 degrees, and the impact, they're still around the same thing. So we can now work on restricting some of that shoulder turn a little bit. And the upper body movement. So we've still got the same number for the upper body side bend, and we've still got the same number for the upper body bend at -6. Again, we want to probably really think about restricting your shoulder turn. It's going to change this number right here and stop a bit of that, and you're going to find it's also going to improve the speeds as well. And we're going to try and take out some from here and give a bit more to the upper body side bend and get that shoulder a bit lower. So it's kind of like we want to think a shorter swing, probably across the board, might kind of point you in the right direction. These are some graphs, but I think what makes the most sense is just going back up and ending with this. So the peak speeds are all really good. Your hands are probably the one thing that Trevor could give you a bit of input in, and sort of seeing if there is any room, or if you do want a wrist cock, or what if anything can be changed there. But otherwise, these numbers are really, really excellent, and yeah, hope that helps.